In a landmark decision last July, Judge Sarah Singleton ruled the state is violating the constitutional rights of at-risk students by failing to provide them with a sufficient education, including children with disabilities, Native Americans, and English language learners. Now, that case, Yazzie and Martinez versus the state of New Mexico, resulted in a $447 million funding investment on top of the billions the state is already spending on public education. Judge Singleton gave lawmakers in the New Mexico Public Education Department a deadline of April 15th to provide sufficient resources to school districts across the state. That was this past Monday. So where are we now in the process? Here to help us sort out the details is Dan McKay, staff writer for the Albuquerque Journal. Thanks for coming in, Dan. Appreciate it.
Hi, thank you, Gene.
Kind of a complicated deal here, but I just want to kind of back up just for a quick step. What was the judge's ruling in a nutshell here? What was she looking for to happen on the 15th?
Well, essentially, the New Mexico Constitution requires that the state provide a system of free public education, and so that's a constitutional right. And she found that the state was violating the rights of some students by not giving them that sufficient public education. By April 15th, she said she wanted a funding system in place to cure these deficiencies.
Right.
So she didn't necessarily rule that the education system had to be fixed by Monday, but that there needed to be a funding system that would allow districts to meet their constitutional obligations.
Now, there's no hearing scheduled. Maybe we were wrongly anticipating one on Monday to kind of get to the next step. With no hearing scheduled, however, how is the judge to know progress is being made by the state? Is there a mechanism for that?
The judge left it open.
Okay.
She did not set an immediate hearing or require an immediate report or anything like that. What she said in her most recent ruling is that either side, the plaintiffs or the state or almost anybody, I think, can file with the court and say, look, New Mexico is still failing to meet its obligations, and these are the reasons why. And then at that point, she would take action and dive into any questions people raise about whether the state has taken adequate steps to meet her ruling.
Is that okay by the plaintiffs? Are they happy with that result? I mean, it seemed like from all the quotes we had since last July, they're looking for fast action here. Are they okay with this situation as it stands now?
The plaintiffs have made it clear that they do not believe that the state has done enough to address the court rulings.
Okay.
But they have also suggested that they are not going to haul the state into court immediately. They want some time to evaluate what the state has done. There's, in addition to money, there's also legislation affecting various education policies and programs, and the state is just the originator of the money. The money then goes to school districts who have some flexibility in how they spend it and what kinds of programs they want to participate in, whether they want to extend the school year. So I think the plaintiffs want to take some time to see how school districts respond to what the state did, and the plaintiffs are taking a wait-and-see approach at this point.
Gotcha. I mentioned the $447 million, and one question I do have, I'm a little confused on, do we know how much of what was appropriated is going to count towards sort of an over and above the line amount of education spending that meets the goals of Judge Singleton's ruling? Do we have clarity on that quite yet, or am I explaining that quite well?
I don't know that any amount of it is designated specifically to the judge's ruling. But the court order is so broad about the state failing to meet its obligations for at-risk students that the money is generally intended for programs that the state believes are effective based on research, academic research, evidence. So these are things that involve extending learning time by adding weeks to the school year at the beginning of the year with the same teacher. They found that that's effective in helping elementary school students sort of bridge the achievement gap among different demographic groups. They've got extra money for pre-K. So the increase is clearly intended largely to go to programs that they believe will address the judge's ruling.
Right.
Teacher retention is also a big issue. The judge called that out, and so there are teacher pay raises in there too. But districts also have some flexibility, so we'll have to see, what they want to do with the money.
Right. The administration, Lujan Grisham administration, it's pretty clear from their language in your paper and others that they're not interested in a protracted legal fight here. They want to be clear to be able to do their thing here going forward, and they feel like they're on solid ground. But what do they have to do to ensure that? You know, is there a way, enough activity where they're sort of not going to incur the wrath of Judge Singleton here? Do you know what I mean? Or can they get there, do you think?
Well, it's hard to say. I don't know that the judge wants the litigation to continue either.
Right.
You know, it could be that the state at some point will be the one who files a report with the judge. Maybe they will go to court and feel like, hey, we have a good case to explain to you why we've met your orders, and you know, we can put this case aside. But it's hard to say.
Yeah.
The Lujan Grisham administration did not appeal the decision itself, so there won't be that kind of protracted litigation, but there still could be quite a bit of combat between the plaintiffs and the administration over, are we meeting the court order, and that kind of thing. It really remains to be seen what shape this is going to take.
I realize it's a bit early, and not to put you on the spot a little bit here, but you mentioned districts are forming their budgets now. There's a lot of nuance to this, a lot of details. It's not hard to figure or anticipate that in the sort of trying to work this out, a lot of details are going to come to the surface, and more time actually may be needed. And in fact, if I kind of expand on that, even Judge Singleton in her ruling acknowledged that there's just not enough teachers out there to implement this. Even if all the money landed in districts today, meaning back then, there's work to be done. Do you sense there's understanding from everyone involved here that maybe just a little more time might be appropriate here, just to make sure we've got everything buttoned down?
Yeah, I think that the state definitely feels that way, and the school districts.
Okay.
The legislators made it clear that they viewed what they did this year as simply an initial step towards improving the school system. And almost certainly there will be problems or conflicts that crop up as school districts try to carry out the extra funding. You know, they may say exactly what you're saying, that, you know, look, thank you for giving us a lot of money to expand the K-5 Plus program that extends the school year, but we just don't have enough teachers who are willing to do it, so we can't carry this out. So there could be practical problems of you know, implementation that are going to hold things up. Now the plaintiffs may look at that and say, well, I'm sorry, you guys have had your chance, and now we need some more court enforcement. The state, on the other hand, may say, well, we need some more time. You know, how this shakes out, I don't know.
Dan McKay, Albuquerque Journal, thanks for coming in, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gene.
Really appreciate it.